What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Steak Knife Show. This is episode number 2. Today we're going to be talking about Today we're going to be talking about the importance of competition. If you are a police officer, security officer like Foster and I are, it's important to be. I am the equation of the part where like I train a lot, but I don't compete a lot. As he trains a lot and competes a lot. And that's where he brought up some ideas that I had never really considered as somebody who's newer to consistent training in jiu-jitsu or grappling and even in striking. So kind of going to pick his brain and like draw some of those ideas out. So you said this to me. Basically, you were like, you're a bitch. You need to compete more. And
like oddly sounds like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you're like beating me up, you're like, you should compete more because then this would suck less. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. So let me give you some of those thoughts. And they can be just as raw as you give them to me because that's, I don't mean like you're not berating anybody, but what you're doing is
first off,
build those ideas.
I know who I am. You either like me or you don't. And like, that's okay. That's all right. But competition versus not. So it's one, so like there's something that like you should always be aware of too much of anything, right? So like let's talk about like we see it in the UFC a lot. You see people who are like on a tear, like I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna fight. Then all of a sudden you see them walking with a cane, right? Or like people who treat every gym roll like it's the world championship match, and when the knee pops, they disappear and they don't come back, right?
Ever.
On the flip side of that, like, and I'm never gonna bash any of the schools ever. Like, keep it playful, like exploratory roll, flow rolling is probably one of my absolute favorite things. And the coolest thing that's happened recently in my life is my 8-year-old daughter. Like, she doesn't know how to roll yet, but she wants to like scramble. And so like Isla and I will like, I think we went for like 25 minutes last night, just her monkeying around and like me just keeping her safe, right?
Yeah.
But the problem with that is like, especially if you older grappler returning from injury, returning from pregnancy, which I'm all for. Like, ladies are some of my favorite training partners because like you guys have to truly understand the technique. Not saying that you guys aren't strong, but like you're the minority of our training group. Yeah. So like when you find a high level lady who can train guys, especially like spazzy white belts or like strong blue belts, they know the techniques. And like that's what I'm after. Like I'm never gonna lift weights. I'm never gonna I'm not. I eat much better now. Like I don't drink anymore. I'm taking good care of myself, but I'm not gonna lift weights. Mainly because I'll take the time to load a bar and somebody's like, I need a rolling partner. I'm like, clear this bar off. I'm gonna go train, right? My pursuit really is martial arts. And in terms of like competition, if you train with the same people, like you and I train a lot together.
Yep.
And what I was noticing is you kind of like got super lucky in that Mike Chaney took a shine to you, Brett Boggs took a shine to you, I took a shine to you. So like you got these high level dudes, but like you're wearing a white belt, you're also getting in shape, like, and so like we're giving you this information, but like there's no real like resistance. I think the hardest rounds you have are likely with me because I try to treat you with the same kind of aggressiveness that we run into at work. Like, I'm on calls with you. Like I've seen you get hit and like, I am just a true believer of like, train how you need it to work in battle, right? That doesn't mean go out and like armbar rip and like pop your buddy's arm or like rip a heel hook. But like, especially in terms of like pressure, or like, I don't even know what you call it, like pain compliance, like the steak knife, or like muffle, or like knee on belly, like give them pressure as they get better in skill, or if you notice they're stalling out, right? And that's where competition really shines for me. We're opposite ends of the spectrum. Like you've done one competition.
Yep.
I try to compete once a month. I've slacked off recently, but I already have like my next tournament lined up and like all that stuff. But like, I'm not saying you should compete as much as I do. I'm saying, honestly, my true belief, if I ever open a school, it will be a requirement for it to count towards your next belt that you compete twice a year. Doesn't have to be a big tournament. Doesn't have to be a small tournament. It can be
Right.
whatever you're comfortable with. You have to compete twice a year. And it's not for the medals. It's not for anything other than the experience of you and another person being like, shake my hand. I'm going to kill you. Like, and they're coming for you, right? Like, you might be the best flower sweeper in the world, and somebody's never fully resisted you.
Yeah.
Like, or
That's very true. Yeah.
or like, you want to talk about like, I always love when you get people who are like, oh, like I'm the best at this. Have you done it numerous times in multiple competitions against somebody who really doesn't want that to work? And then on the flip side of that, something my dad always told me, he was like, never show your full bag. And it never made sense to me. I was like, why? And he was like, once they learn you, they'll band against you. There'll be a team that forms against you that figures out like, oh, you really like Kimura? How do I block all Kimura? Right? And like I ran into that, like especially.
I was gonna say, you had a competition where one of the dudes, like he said they had notebooks about you, and that dude did beat you. His student did beat you.
Yep.
Yeah. There were other factors there.
There were other factors, but like they knew that my only thing was Kimura at the time, and like that was my only attack for a long time. I built my whole purple belt was built around it, and the thing that I always hated about my dad saying is like there's gotta be a way, an answer for like this problem, because my dad's a black belt in Taekwondo and Hapkido, and learned from like a true master of that art from North Korea. That's a crazy story that my dad, like that's just a super crazy story. But like it's a legitimate martial artist, and he was just concerned because like I like fighting, and he's like, you're gonna be long in the tooth someday and like get your ass whooped. And I mean I catch a lot of ass whoopings. But in terms of like what you can do with it is, because I only had Kimura and I was so stubborn about it, I now treat Kimura as a guard. I can't remember the last time I won by Kimura, but I know that it's a control node for me. It's a drop down box. It is a true guard for me. If I can get a Kimura grip, I feel really safe. But that comes from the exploratory roles, but then doing it in competition against a fully resisting person. Let me tell you, when you get a young buck who's like fresh out of like the D1 wrestling squad, and like you lock a Kimura in and you realize like this ain't moving. This is as solid as steel. Then it becomes about how do I move around it, right? And then once you learn that, when you like decide, or you get egged on, you know who you are, by like, oh, you medaled, you should definitely do the open weight class. And then you're like, oh, this is a terrible idea. But
as opposed to me, who just has to be in the open weight class.
I mean, you were blessed with height, but like the weight that comes with it is. And then you were not, like, you had that the pro wrestler who apologized to you before the matches.
He didn't really apologize. Like, we had trained together, and I saw him holding a white belt, and I was like, he's in my weight category. And I was like, let's just be clear. I'm not a small person. Everybody outweighed me by at least 50 to 60 pounds. Some of that muscle, some of that other material. But,
I see that.
Yeah, but it was an interesting learning experience in how to get Kimura and straight arm locked.
I'm not, did you die, but was your arm snapped?
I'm fine. I tapped way early. I was like, nope, I know what's happening.
See,
like,
that's. I think that's also the beauty of jiu-jitsu. Is that it's the only sport that you can train and compete at 100% with relative safety. Judo, like, I don't care. Like, I know I have a black belt in falling down, and like it has saved my life. But like getting hit with the planet over and over and over again, like you have to be a special kind of crazy to be like, I'm gonna do this till I'm a black belt. Like, if judo wasn't my natural like proclivity, I would not have stayed. It just came naturally to me, so I soared through it. So even though I was catching ass whoopings, I was doing it back. Right? Like, you
were able to like find some parity.
It's the main reason I hid from striking for a long time. Outside of eventually when I realized I was going to do MMA, I couldn't be a bitch. So I chose, of course, like the meanest one I could find where I could hide in my skill set. Right? I chose Muay Thai to really, which again, you want to talk about like ignorance, like. I chose Muay Thai because they had the clinch.
Yeah, because
but I am short and stumpy and cannot throw good knees. So a lot of the time I got my ass whooped in the clinch because I can't do any judo throws. Now, 30 something years later, I was like, I'm bored. I'm a little injured. I don't want to go get kicked in the leg. I'll give boxing a shot. Like every other retired MMA fighter, except I'm not retired. I just haven't gotten serious about MMA, and I planned on being like Henzo and doing MMA fights well into my 50s just for fun. Like I have no plans outside of I like fighting. But I started doing boxing, and all of a sudden, every one of my takedowns that I have struggled with, that are all footwork takedowns, got better because of the boxing footwork. We're talking about true ignorance. I missed out on something that I could have been developing for years. My foot sweeps, which I'm already really good at, are way better because of my boxing footwork. The things that come from keeping an open mind and never stopping learning is so invaluable. And that's again one of those things that comes from competition. One of the easiest ways to make sure that you don't get beat by me is to pull guard, because if I foot sweep you, I don't care who you are, even if you are used to it, it throws you off. You already feel like you're behind the 8 ball. And my last competition was a super fight against Evan DeWitt, and he sits down and the whole crowd started booing. And he looks up at these people in the middle of this cage grappling match, and he said, "I'm not being part of his highlight reel. No. Y'all can fuck off." And I giggled, and then eventually got caught in a heel hook because I thought he was going to stand up with me. But again, Evan's a professional jiu-jitsu fighter, where I sometimes get invited to professional events. That I don't really view myself as that. I understand where I fall in the levels of things. I'm never going to be a world champion. Right. I go to Worlds, it's just an expensive vacation. I'm not going to go do anything crazy, but sometimes I get lucky enough to get invited to bigger cards, which again, I think Katie Bojanek said it to me one time when I was down on myself. She was like, "So you go out and lose, but if you say no, you definitely won't get an invite to the next one."
Not just that, you're still invited to the dance,
right? And again, my biggest thing is
you're not going to be crowned homecoming queen.
Even if you win, I've won a couple.
You're
I've
you're
surprised.
The girl in Mean Girls that catches a piece of the crown. You're like,
Is it it's like when they throw the thing at a wedding and you get one of the flowers?
Yeah. Except you're the person that just don't like the person.
But in terms of the importance of competition, it can't be overstated. If you especially if you're the king of, bump sweep in your gym, and even if you're at a big gym,
right,
go try to hit it in a competition, and either you'll hit it and be like, "Oh man, I really have this technique," and your coach will be like, "Hey, really have this technique." You either need to develop something off of it, or you need to be moved to the next level of skill, which is everybody should be driving to their next belt. Not because the belt's important, because you want to be sharpening yourself against an appropriate opponent, right? You want to if you it's just, and your fundamentals should be key. It's always strange to see people who are they'll find something off the wall and they're this is what I'm going to stake my claim on, and they just don't get it yet. You got to get some fundamentals, and your fundamentals will help you stake that claim. Whereas the true scary people are people who truly mastered fundamentals and then made cool shit off of that. Right?
Yeah, they usually are.
They usually have the staying power, because man, it is hard. I didn't learn the middle block game until late round, where I think I was on my 7th loss in a row of 2 heel hook, and Brett Boggs pulled me aside and was like, "This isn't gonna work, man. You have to change something."
Yeah.
That's a hard pill to swallow. It's and I don't care who you are, your ego, even at black belt, my ego flares up, it does, and you have to, that's the true mastery of it. You're time to put myself to the sword again, gotta go suck, and if you're gonna do it forever, you should be a student forever.
That's why in the training environment, I will seek out, as long as that environment is what I'm used to, where the black belts are open to roll with everyone, which honestly I don't go to places where that wouldn't be the case. But I'll seek out a roll with them and be the first person to be "Can I roll with you?"
Yeah,
because I want the challenge. I want to see what they do with me at my level.
See, and I came from super traditional martial arts where you weren't even allowed to approach the black belts.
Yeah.
And then the weird cultiness of jujitsu. Like my first jujitsu gym, like it was a cult. Like I still have a partially covered up tattoo of it. It's not great, but like you got to be careful of like idolizing or like the things that can come like that. That black belt is just a black belt. Like there's just as big of a piece of shit on the mats as they were off the mats. Like, and like don't get me wrong, there's something to be said about like when you bow on the mats, you leave everything on the side. Yes, but like it's something I tell you all the time, especially at work or at a gym. I have zero interest in making better bullies, and so if I do decide to roll with somebody that I know is like a true like bully, like they're basically getting the hardest round that I feel justified in giving them to their skill level. But like I'm not answering any questions. I'm not saying, hey, you should do this.
Right.
When they ask me, you should go ask a different person. Is because one, it's usually not my gym, or if it is my gym, I think my gym now has like 30 black belts. Like you could go find that. We just took a team picture and like you can't even get us all in the frame. Like
that's wild.
We have so many black belts, and like you can find one of them that will take you under their wing. It ain't me. Like I don't even really want a school. Like I literally at best will do like a pop-up seminar on foot sweeps, maybe if I like the person enough. Like it's a strange thing because all I've ever cared about is just training. Like the first thing that's packed when I go on any trip is a gi and a pair of like no gi stuff, and like it doesn't matter if it's a wedding or a family trip or whatever. Like Googling the closest gym that has some presence of like I email them and like kind of gauge like, hey man, like I'm happy to pay a mat fee, buy a t-shirt, whatever, post on Instagram that like a cross train here, whatever, like you want to, like I'm just here to train. Like
just want to get some rolls in.
Yeah, just want to get some rolls in. And it's been like I don't think I've really ever had it. I think I've only had like one bad experience in Florida, and I just went 2 miles up to a different gym. And like the first one was very pristine and like nice, but like it was very arrogant and like a little too like just kind of felt like they were trying to take my head off. And then I went to this little mom and pop place and had some of the most fun I've ever had.
Right.
Same thing in Vegas. When I went to Vegas and trained at one gym, and then I found this much smaller gym.
Yeah.
Like it's always the smaller places that like don't have a chip on their shoulder. They'll usually tell you the best place to see. Or when we went to England, the gym took us out. Like
they were like, we're going here.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I guess that's where we're going. Like, and it's such a cool thing, and that's what I love about jiu-jitsu. Back to the main topic of competition, like you should compete. And if you're like, I don't even like it, it scares me. Cool. Do a local grappling industries where you're guaranteed 4 matches. Do gi and no gi. If you want, like, if you want to get good at escapes, you need to do no gi. If you want to get good at control, you need to do gi. If you want to get better at no gi, do more gi. If you want to get better at gi, do more no gi. Like you should be doing all of it. And ultimately, you want this stuff to work. You want it to work well. And the closest to like a real ass whooping that you're ever gonna get is competition, because that person, one, they're just as scared as you. Even that's the thing that like I remember like my last competition at brown belt. It was my first competition at Masters 2, and it was just me and one other dude, and he was so nervous. Meanwhile, I'm looking at this, he looks like he's 20, shredded. And like we're sitting there talking after I think he beat me like 2-0.
Yeah.
And he's just puking his guts out, super nervous. And I was like, what's your deal? And he's like, oh, I'm a current Army Ranger. Like I'm on TRT to the gills. Like he's like, I looked you up and I was so scared you're gonna foot sweep me. He's like, I was so nervous to fight you. Like I've watched a bunch of your fights online, and I was like, really? Like you grabbed a hold of me and it was like liquid T1000 steel. Like I literally thought you were sucking the energy out of me. Like but like everyone's just as scared as you, and one of the best ways to conquer yourself like is to face that fear. And if you get in trouble, you tap.
Yeah.
Like
so from like that side of like that sports side of like really like putting your metal to it, there's that. But then one of the other points you brought up to me was, okay, now you have somebody who may be skilled and now is on Reality 66. Like that's where not falling to the lowest level of training, but rising to the occasion and like being able to keep even that really dangerous person safe comes into play. Like it tying it back to like, yes, there's a mat and ref like in the sport competition world. What we do, there's hard surfaces, floors. It's not like some of it is in a somewhat what would be considered like a sanitary environment
For us.
for
like,
us. But yeah, like
if they make it outside the hospital or like in terms
Yeah.
of law enforcement. And this is why I understand why you wanted to shoot it on the
Yeah.
mats, because this is how I answered this question, but it's such a weird way to get to this point. So what you're going to do is I'm going to need you to lay down, officer, whoever, right? And what we just like if I was like jiu-jitsu doesn't work, just stand up, right?
Mhm.
That whole thing, right? I taught law enforcement for a long time. I still do. My favorite thing in the world is like, if I'm ever in trouble, I'll just draw my gun. And my answer to that is, you came up, we were talking, all of a sudden a scuffle happened,
Yeah.
you end up down, and I go, whoop, boom. Draw your gun.
can't
What?
because you're on it.
I know you're left-handed, but most of us are right-handed,
Yeah.
and your gun is here. Draw your gun.
Even with training,
Bang.
yeah.
Right?
And now you can trap my hand on my
Oh my goodness.
Well, I
oh
mean,
yeah,
like,
here. Oh no, I'd let you just go into that because it's never coming back out.
Yep.
Like, and then just beat you to death.
Yep.
Like there's just I can't tell you how many people like from here like. So I even get them to admit that they could trip like while drawing their gun and fall. And they're like, oh, I just shoot from my back. And I ask them like, do you ever go to the range and shoot that way? And they're like,
knock down and then intentionally shoot from your back.
and they're like, oh no, I've never done that. And I promise you, I will, if they're willing, especially if it's at like a party or something, I have them lay down, I have them draw an air gun, and they start blasting, right? And I usually record it so they can see it. Their finger gun is shooting themselves in the leg, right? Because they've never trained it. They never put it to the stress test, right? So like, if you're not grappling, like let's cut through like the frills. If you're not doing jiu-jitsu and you are in law enforcement, corrections, security, you need to quit that job. I don't care, and I don't want to hear the excuses of I don't have time, I have kids. Like I don't care. Most places will cut you a
Do you
few
have kids?
I have 2 kids. I had 2 kids when I was an active police officer. 2 kids currently that I have to drive to jiu-jitsu because my daughters are certainly going to do it. Because you know what? My favorite thing to tell people is come prom night, I'm not worried about them calling me for help. Outside of, hey dad, I need some bail money. Somebody's dusty ass son tried something and I choked him out and now I'm in jail. And I said, okay, we'll get ice cream on the way home. And we'll set up some time with Dr. Wong next week. Like they're therapists.
Give them gifts.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh my goodness, yes. But like it's just, and it's time to like go beyond this like and here's my answer to like I don't have time. Most of the officers I know are in a dart league or in a softball league or in these things. Those are fun recreational activities. You should definitely still be training. If your kids are in sports, you should figure out a way to get them to their sport and then train during that sport. And it's beyond me that like police academy training is abysmal. It's at best 2 weeks of like not like it's not enough, right? And
even blue chip academies, and I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong. They're doing the best with what the time they've allotted, but some instill this amazing culture initially in these long academies, and they have them train significant amounts of time, and then after that, it's like figure it out.
well, and the other side of
Like,
it is emergency services work. Like
Yeah.
you work long hours. You get mandated. Like I've
Yeah.
never like I love my job. I love working in a hospital more than I ever liked being a police officer. And like at the end of my work weeks, I am so thankful it's over from the amount of stress mentally and physically that we're put under. And it's just accepted. My favorite one is like I certainly like one of my first questions if I'm ever going to the hospital, where are you at in your rotation and how long have you been awake?
Yeah.
I don't want a doctor on their 4th day of their 4th 16 in a row coming and making a medical decision for me. No.
Yeah.
And like I am another one. Like I am not.
It's like the scene in Idiocracy where he like licks the three things. It's like this one goes in the butt, and you're like, what? Yeah.
That one. It's something that like the whole culture needs, from all emergency services, needs reworked in terms of like, and it's another thing, like the mental health side of things. Like I am not a proponent of jujitsu replacing real therapy. I think that it is a great tool to be used with real therapy.
Yep.
You go to the doctor when you have a cold, you go to the doctor or a minute clinic when you have some kind of infection. Your brain needs a doctor as well. And you absolutely should go to therapy to just work through all of those things. And again, some people understand it so much that for competition, they have a special therapist, like
almost like a sports psychologist.
Like
that,
mind coach, things like that. Like, I know that works for some.
Yeah.
Right. That never worked for me, because for me, I guess martial arts is the closest to a spiritual experience that I have, as a lapsed Catholic who doesn't practice anymore. But martial arts brings me close to people. Like, martial arts is like where I truly live by the golden rule of like treat others how you want to be treated. It's where I made some of my deepest connections with people.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my best friends I met across, like, the first time I ever laid eyes on them, we were shaking hands to fight at competition. And if you like competing, it's hard to find people who relate to that. And so when you find one and you fight this dude and you fight him again and you fight him again and you fight him again, you guys end up becoming friends. And like most of the people that I've fought more than like 2 or 3 times, they stay at my house when there's competitions here, or I stay at their house, or we share a hotel room.
Right.
Like it just is a true.
So you're using competition, like there's a bond there. There really is. Like
when you spill blood or sweat with somebody, like it's real.
Well, not only just in the training room, like the dude you were talking about, the wrestler that I fought, like, you know why we say pro wrestler, like acrobat, lucha libre, like all that stuff. If you don't know what that means, that's what Google's for. I don't know, that's way beyond the scope of what we have, but like he and I, like every time we see, like, hey, what's up, man? Hey, what's up? Like there's like this like honor,
respect.
Like even though he fucking destroyed me, like it doesn't matter. Like every time we roll together, it's fun to see like how much better he's gotten or how much better I've gotten. Like, and, like he'll be like, oh yeah, you're doing that thing. Like, yeah, I'm doing that thing against you, you giant. Like,
I'm gonna give it a shot.
You are human jungle gym to me. Like, but yeah.
Yeah, but like again, like take everything I say with a grain of salt, run it by your friends, like all that garbage. But like, man, like the reactions or like everything that I say or like I kind of formed an opinion on is like from experience and then like close experiences of my friends that I trust. And like competition shortens your journey on the road to black. And it does it because you're getting true real world violent resistance to technical application. And
the other person may have something you don't have.
Yeah.
Like you said, like you have the best bump sweep in your gym. Cool. Did you put it into the sword?
Or it exposes.
Somebody?
People start learning what you're weak at. Like it was never a secret. All through purple, all through brown, like I was weak to leg locks, and I've lost black belt matches now to heel hooks, like to basic heel hooks, because it's so complicated, and I started so late. Like at best, I would say I am freshly intermediate at the leg lock game.
Yeah,
and like that is 100%. To Brett Boggs and his systematic approach to, and almost hyper focus on it. And I still hate leg locks. I've won competitions with them, but they are not what I seek out. I use them more to pass or create escapes and more movement. But like, I'm hopeful to always be a complete fighter, and I always want to have some kind of ace in the hole, right? And so like, competition is necessary for just exposing what you're weak at. And if some people who are the greatest rollers in the gym, some of the greatest people, like partners I have in the gym, can't bring it out in competition. that is such a mental hurdle that would, for me, and I can't speak for anybody else, for me,
Right.
that would scare me, that if I really needed it in a mugging, in a home invasion, in a bar fight, I need this to work. I don't want to be like, oh man, I hope this works.
Yeah.
Competition shows you that it does.
Well, that's the other thing too. Is like, okay, are you going to belly up in a real fight as opposed to show up? Like,
Yeah.
are you going to fall? Not even fall to the lowest form of training. Are you going to fall to the lowest mentality and just be like,
Give up, tap out. Yeah.
I pulled guard and I don't know what happened,
So
or fall back for a heel hook in a street fight.
yeah, falling back for heel hooks. I mean, don't be wrong, they can work, but like also at the same time, like one of the best heel hookers of all time, Gary Tonin, did get knocked out in a cage fight because the person trained and caught him while he fell back, right? Because your
Yeah.
hands are occupied and they can strike
Yeah.
you. Wow. It's not great.
Yeah.
But you said something. And the concussions came forward and pushed it away. What did you say? That was such a good. I wanted to say something.
Falling to the lowest form of training. Talking about
Oh,
the streets.
yeah. In terms of
Yeah.
here's the thing. Like talk about bellying up, giving up, right?
Yeah.
I would say most people know me as a competitor.
Right.
The ones that, oh man, the ones that hurt the most, the losses that hurt the most, are where I was controlled so masterfully
Yeah.
that I gave up. And there was still like a minute and a half, and I was like, I don't have an answer for this.
Yeah.
Here's my first IBJJF as a black belt in Chicago. Dude who smoked everybody to first, right? He had his mount game was so beautiful. He held me down, racked up a ton of points, held me down in mount repeatedly, and then decided he was done working because I won my first one. He was my second match.
Yeah.
Held me down for almost 2 minutes at a black belt, and like,
Yeah.
you want to talk about the embarrassment of like, oh my god,
Yeah.
right? And then like again talking about ego, my ego flared up. I said, "You gonna come to Nogi tomorrow?"
Yeah.
Because I was ready. Like I was like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to a gym tonight. I'm gonna work this. I'm gonna find some kind of answer.
Yeah.
He said, "Nope, I only care about gi," and he flew back to Texas. So
He's like, fuck you, bitch.
yeah,
You do
that
your
was
thing.
super upset. I'm upset in terms of like I better have an answer because I'm sure I'll run into
Yeah.
him at Chicago this year. Like
Yeah.
it's a strange one. It's competition really exposes good and bad things to work on, and it's just such a boon. And hiding from it does nothing.
True.
And I challenge you. Compete once a year.
So here's another question. So talking about like falling to like out of this whole conversation, we kind of talked about like, does it make you fall to your foremost lows of training if you don't compete? But I guess my other thing too is, can it further, two sides to this question, I guess. Can it further ingrain bad habits for like a true self-defense situation where you can't avoid it? And in that same vein, can it help you navigate them with a more clear head? Because you're so used to that ebb and flow of fighting in like somebody who's trying to hurt you.
So your first question is, does not competing
No,
reinforce-
does it reinforce bad habits because you have a specific game? And so do you take that out to the street?
Okay.
And when I say like a self-defense situation, I'm not talking about if you end up in a fight. I know sometimes they're unavoidable, but also too, like, I think to be a complete, in the true sense of I'm a martial artist, you have to understand when to avoid situations too.
Oh yeah, like
But so that's a whole different line of thing. But like I'm saying, like it was an unavoidable fight. You ended up there, and it truly is like self-defense. Like
I think some of the worst things that you can do in terms of competition, and I've seen it like some competition scars, right? You see it a lot with jiu-jitsu guys who get talked into doing some striking. They're like, "Oh, I'll do MMA," right?
Right.
And they're usually a higher level, a colored belt of some kind, and they go into the MMA match, and they might win one or two, or they'll run into like the buzzsaw early, and they're guard pullers, and you're fighting a wrestler who's heavy-handed.
Yeah.
You've worked a little bit of striking, but you're primarily IBJJF or a jiu-jitsu competitor, right?
Yeah.
And you pull guard in the cage, and they wedge your neck up against the cage, where now your hips are open to relieve pressure. Your sweeps are kind of gone. You don't really have any submissions. You haven't trained strikes from white to whatever belt.
Yeah.
And now you're being hit in the face. right? In terms of the self-defense world, like I love groundwork. I love rolling. I love it. It's my favorite thing. I will do almost anything to avoid going to my back intentionally on concrete. Like, even though one of my best throws is to Moinagi, like I don't know that I would sit down and monkey flip somebody on concrete. Like, I'd rather take my chances with a moving helmet to like body lock and crash, like or crash and body lock. So like in terms of only doing sport competition and not training for self-defense, and all that would entail is like just do a combat jiu-jitsu round. Hey bud, I'm gonna lightly slap at your face. Can you lightly slap at mine? And like that's ended up being some of our most entertaining but eye-opening experiences.
Well, also, this is something that somebody else that I've Cheney interviewed and Brian Frias talked about. He's like, jiu-jitsu is a sport, but jiu-jitsu gets you ready for pressure. He's like, it is a sport, but if you roll with it during it, like you have the mind to roll it with intention as somebody who's wearing a uniform somewhere else, he's like, it can be used. He's like, so you use your rounds as a way to deal with the pressure of somebody smothering you, like some big dude that you may encounter on the street, just like that.
That rolls you over. Like I have a pretty
rolls
decent,
you over. Yeah,
I have a pretty decent top game, but like I get rolled frequently.
Yeah.
I end up on the bottom. It didn't happen at work. I got this. I thought my partner had control, and the guy fought off my partner and exploded me into a blast double leg where I ended up underneath him. And the interesting problem was I had open guard with him. He was in my open guard. It wasn't closed. And I was going for the sweep, and I hear my partner, Noah Kaufman.
Yeah.
He's like, I have his hips. You can't sweep him.
Yeah.
Thank God Noah trained. So my immediate reaction that I have repped to death is immediate go for a flower sweep. As soon as somebody pulls me down their guard, get control of an arm and flower sweep. Every time I went to flower sweep, Noah felt this movement, and the guy that we were unfortunately struggling with, the patient, I know him locally. He's a decent enough MMA fighter, so I know he's trained.
He's done rounds, he's done reps, he's fought unwilling people.
So I had to adapt.
Win or lose, like it doesn't matter, right?
Right, but like because I've trained with you and I probably do the most realistic rounds. Where like you'll block my sweep. Okay, got to change the game. Guess I'm going to do a technical stand up, and I did a technical stand up. Sprawled out on his back, brought him forward, little raikiri pressure, and then like we got control of him. But so in terms of that first part of your question, competition is great, but like.
Can it build bad habits?
It can. If you're a guard puller and you don't have a takedown, you're opening yourself up for severe failure.
And I guess let's add on to this. In a self-defense situation, would you even recommend a takedown? Or is it going to depend? Do you really want to take that fight to the ground?
And that's the problem. Most outside of
I understand in our job we do that because we're gaining control.
Right, but in terms of self-defense, so like I used to run probably one of the best self-defense programs like to ever have come into existence, and now it's unfortunately closed. But I ran it with Jason Apt and Devin Kate, and like we taught takedowns, but like we harped about like maintaining and controlling distance. And that controlling distance doesn't mean like getting in a phone booth. It means like keeping them away. It means break, right? Yeah. And then something that we did is like you had to throw the whole line.
Yeah.
And so you had all different body types and everything. And you would see people like as we increased in skill level and stuff, like I would tell people to start holding on. And so when they throw, they'd get dragged to the ground, right? So like if you have a sacrifice throw, like Makikomi, where like you're gonna dive over, and like what it literally is like I'm gonna elbow over your shoulder and like drive to the ground and jump. My elbow point is gonna be the first point of contact on concrete. Or you're like, I'm a really good at double leg, and you practice only heel toe knee driving into the mat, and then you heel toe drive your knee into concrete. Or the worst injury I saw, we had when I was a sheriff's deputy, we had a sheriff who had wrestled for Ohio State, and he hit the cleanest thing ever and destroyed his kneecap because there was a rock in the mud. And you didn't. It's one that I took from Jason. Jason's like, we're not going to teach heel toe knee outside of like a movement drill.
Yeah.
But like every takedown that we hit from like a double leg is a good athletic squat.
Yeah.
Right? And
It's
not
the
driving off our knees.
GSP cage double leg where you step in, step out, boom, and you rotate.
Well, and that really came from Jason's philosophy that we really held onto in the building of our curriculum of always remain athletic
Yeah.
while trying to make your opponent unathletic. And it's
Yeah.
what I brought forward into the curriculum you and I have built in terms of security work is there's no point that any of our officers should ever be in an unathletic stance. You should be playing a sport the whole time so that you can run away, you can pivot, you can sidestep, you can engage, you can disengage, you can accept weight, you can give weight, you can move dynamically, right? And then as we start to touch people, we try to make them unathletic with our weight, our off balancing, just make them stumble
Yeah.
and then get to a point of safety like the back and hold on and wait for your backup. Now, as a police officer and sheriff's deputy, I understand response times can sometimes, I think our fastest response time when I was on shift was 20 minutes.
Yeah.
In a farm county.
Right, you're in a big county.
You're at most time you're hoping Ohio State Patrol is bored and listening to your radio because they're probably closer than your backup. So you have to be able to finish the fight. So what happens when in your tactical boots you trip over a parking block and you're now on your butt and this person's on top of you? Have you ever with your gun belt on practiced a hip escape or oompa or bridge and step over escapes from mount? Because your tool belt's out. You think if you're just the size exchange. You're taller, bigger. You're stronger than me.
Yeah.
You're on my gun belt. This is why I also believe that we should switch to all chest carry. I don't care if it looks military. At least here I could access some tool, even a magazine to come out as a impact weapon. I can grab a magazine and start punching into something to get him off of me, right? But here, I better get some kind of control of a limb and then violently do something. But if I have my gear belt on, my vest on, and most people still wear the Class A polyester pants that don't offer much movement, from here, I'm going to be boom, and I'm going to start to really throw you. And I don't even expect this step over to work. I expect you to grab yourself, lifting some space off, and I'm going to start to strip out and get my legs in this.
Right.
And this isn't even to go for heel hooks. This is so when he swings through with power, I can create some distance. At least here I can hold him and draw a gun, right? I can a taser if you have that tool option.
Yeah.
But I can engage you here.
You heard it first here, kids. Some leg lock positions do afford you safety.
Nobody's going
I'm
to
just
believe that
kidding,
because
yeah.
I'm safe.
I know.
I don't even like leg locks. But from here, this is used for me in my philosophy.
But look, if he's really tenses up and gives me pressure, it's not about him trying to expose my heel or trying to leg lock me.
I'm making sure he doesn't knock me out.
Yeah, even my big ass reach, I'm far away. I can peel and start to do this stuff, but he's got time now. Yeah, he can take me back down.
And look, I'm hopefully putting this person who hopefully doesn't train here, but here, I can get knocked out here. This kick is super strong. You see me go, and then we're gonna kind of wrestle around, and then look.
Ooh. Goes back to episode 1.
Right? But again, even this is just this is probably even too much pain. I would probably let you up here, just kind of try to maintain control so I can get away, come through, and just kind of hold you down with pins. For us, a big thing that works for us is the gift wrap. This kind of wins most of our fights.
Yep.
I can control somebody much bigger, stronger, younger, athletic than me from here. And you can breathe. It looks like my knee's on him. It's on his bones. I'm making sure that his only option is to turtle out and give me his back.
This doesn't hurt, and it's not just because I train. He's putting pressure on an area there's big muscle groups there.
Bone reinforced.
Yeah, so it's bone reinforced with big muscle groups, so my hip girdle is supporting it. So it's not like he jumped on top of me and it's hurting me. So just to understand, this position is really powerful. But
it can also be, but on the flip side of it can 100% be abused and used to hurt.
Yeah.
If I come here,
that hurts.
You're gonna really hurt somebody.
Yeah.
But again, another reason that you should train. Does competition create bad habits?
Mm.
What was your second question? Part of it, two-parter. But I have concussions.
I know. We'd have to watch the video again. It's not the end of the world. I think we can end it here. All right, guys. That wraps up our talk about does competition improve your knowledge or improve your effectiveness on the streets or in a self-defense situation? So thank you for joining us. This is episode 2 of the Steak Knife Show. See you next time.